So the first question would be to learn a bit more about you, like your role and day-to-day responsibilities and what you do, and learn a bit more about your background.
I'm the marketing director at Corporate Traditions. We're a pretty small company. My day-to-day is I kind of oversee all of the digital marketing, all of the inbound marketing. We have the majority of our revenue historically has come from outbound sales or events and salespeople making connections at events. We're trying to build an inbound machine, and that's kind of been my task and my role. So a lot of it is SEO, digital ads, working on a new website right now. That's mostly what I've been working on so far. And then email too.
Okay. And you are running all of these initiatives now, not yourself, but you're tasked with all of those initiatives.
Yeah.
Wow, that's a lot.
Yes, it is.
So scary. Well, I'm sure you'll have a lot of that to there based from that experience. So that's really cool to hear. And when was the last time, and I suppose, now that you had to implement organic content growth campaign uh, as part of your growth strategy? Could you describe a bit more about that occasion?
Yeah. So that's a big part of trying to develop an inbound strategy, putting organic content out there. We're trying to create content and repurpose it because we are a smaller team. For example, last week we wrote a new blog and it's going to be published on the blog. We did a social post about it. We sent out an email to some existing customers. It's something we've overlooked as far as giving people value, look at us other than just transactionally. And so I think that's been helpful. For example, that email was one of our highest open rates. And I think because we were offering something of value rather than it just being transactional, like most of our previous emails.
Wow. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I guess, what were the steps that you took to implement that organic content growth campaign?
First was just identifying a need for it and then setting the base up. So making sure that kind of the technical things like do you have a blog and socials and things like that, but then making sure that you know who your audience is. So when you're creating content, you're not trying to create content for the whole world. You're trying to pick, okay, this is our best fit customer, and then talk specifically to them. So figuring out who you're going to talk to, figuring out how you're going to talk to them. Are we going to have a more serious professional tone? Are we going to be a little bit more lighthearted, but still informative? And then what is also the goal? So is it to be strictly informative? Is it to be maybe a little entertaining? Trying to figure those things out first. And then from there, doing some keyword research, looking at what are these audiences looking at, what are things that are already working right now, and then how can we move just 1 degree away from that. We know HR managers are visiting our site and it's the beginning of the year. And what are HR managers thinking about at the beginning of the year? And then use that as a springboard to come up with some topics.
Yeah, makes sense. And I guess in that process, what's the worst or the most difficult?
I don't know if it's the most, I don't know, maybe the most difficult is kind of what I was talking about before, knowing who you should be talking to. Because if you're putting out, the way I look at it, you can create content either for Google to rank or for individuals to consume, and you have to balance both. But I think if you only focus on, okay, I'm just writing this to try and rank it organically, then you're missing providing value to your actual customers. And if you only are thinking about how can I just provide value to every customer that I have, then you're probably going too broad and you're not focused on one specific use case or one specific audience. And of course, you can expand from there depending on the size of your team, have more people. But I think you want to start as narrow as you can and then expand out from there. So that's probably something that's difficult, is knowing, am I picking the right place to start?
Makes sense.
Yeah, that's it.
And I guess what's the most enjoyable in the process?
For me, I really like once it's actually published and you start to see people visiting it or interacting with it on the different channels. So, like, seeing that content that just went out last week had a really high open rate on our emails, and it had a pretty good interaction rate on social media. That made me feel like maybe we are headed in the right direction with our current audience. So now it's done. Now let's just look at it and see, is it hitting these metrics? But also, it's like the most enjoyable, I think. So,
Yeah, seeing a difference is definitely
yeah,
reaching that point is so painful.
yes.
I guess if you had personally unlimited resources like time, people, money, what would you do in this situation?
Yeah, I think one of the things that maybe would be overlooked if you have unlimited resources, some people might think, okay, I'm just going to write 100 blog posts a day and create 100 white papers a day, whatever. I think a good portion of the resources should be spent on interviewing your users or your audience or who you think your prospective audience is, and then also researching where are they right now? Are there current publications that they visit often? Are there influencers or social accounts that they interact with a lot? I would spend a lot of time on that, really understanding where they live, what they like, and then turning that into a significant amount of white papers, guides, blogs, social posts, things like that.
Makes sense. Makes a lot of sense. It's essential for making sure it doesn't fall on deaf ears.
Right,
Each
yeah,
one.
exactly.
Is there anything else you would add, like while you're in this thought space of the future of organic growth and so on?
One thing I've been thinking about is with how common AI is and AI overviews in the SERPs. I think something I've personally seen is having content that people always say like expertise, authority, trustworthiness. I think a lot of time content managers or SEO managers will just try and replicate what is already working out there. Something that I've seen that can be successful is trying to do things a little differently. So if you're going to cover a specific topic, maybe have a hot take on it, even if it's not what the current 10 pieces of content ranking right now talk about, coming in with either your own first party data so that it's unique or a contrarian view of why the opposite is correct. I think that one is maybe a little overlooked, and I've seen that be successful.
Makes sense. We're standing out. And I guess that sort of wraps up the questions.